Right, so I'm just going to begin this video with a quick couple of quick laps to go around the track and just point out a few things. This kind of falls under the gambit of learning tracks, learning cars, just currently just waffling on and just getting brakes because of the temperature. With this Daytona prototype, it's quite heavy. It's much heavier than the other prototypes. You definitely feel like the braking, even though it feels more planted, but it's probably a function of the weight thereof. But it doesn't make it much easier to drive as I do a customary quick bit. And you hear a lot of things, people talking about slow in and fast out, and that is broadly applicable to all cars. With high horsepower cars, and particularly cars like this with a lot of downforce, so I get my pedals warmed up, you've really got to be mindful of the fact that you can carry a lot more apex speed and translate that apex speed into corner exit speed. And obviously, with high-powered cars, the more corner exit you can get, the faster you're in and straight, and it's like it just unlocks a lot of extra time if you're driving. And a track like Road America is it's a challenging track, but there isn't much to it in terms of learning. But I didn't find that too difficult to get a hold of. I'll just start when we come round onto the next lap and just go through my marks with a slow lap, explaining what I use, and then I'll take a couple of laps at a more quicker pace, so you can sort of see things in action. But it's harder to get things sorted in a faster car because things just happen quicker. So starting the lap, I'm just basically looking out onto the left-hand side for the marker boards. I believe they're in yards, and just overshot it there. Just back up a bit. Between the 400 yard and the 300 yard, there is a access road here, and that's basically what I use to gauge my braking. Now, I usually kind of brake between the two if it's on a full tank, and if it's on an empty tank, I can go a bit closer to the 300 yard board. But there is also a sort of dip there, so it's kind of difficult to get the braking right. So braking a straight line to about here, and then because of the downforce, I can literally just like throw the car into the apex at speed, and then I'm aiming for this part here on the apex. And once I've hit that, that's when I know to get back into the throttle. And there's a bit of banking on the track, and it basically means that you can really get into the throttle hard, and then you've got the rumble strip on the outside. By this point, I'm fully in the throttle. I'd go up another couple of gears, and then again I'm looking to the right hand side this time, braking about 150 yards before the corner, going back into third gear from fifth usually, and again I sort of just turn and wrench on the wheel and get it in, and aiming for about here on the apex to get it back into the throttle as hard as I can. And that's another thing that's worth remembering, again with higher horsepower cars, is you want to aim to get back into the throttle in one go. So once you reintroduce throttle into the car, is to then be able to not lift, because that'll help you carry momentum out of it and onto that straight. By carrying momentum onto the straight, that's how you pick up a lot of lap time. So this is a tricky braking zone because of the undulation. I brake about 350 yards before the corner and brake hard because of the downforce, and then because also of the crest, I begin to sort of let off the gas as I come down the gears. Down 4 gears from 6th into 2nd, aim for the bit of concrete there at the apex, hit that, and again, hard into the power. And then this is probably the trickiest corner on the circuit, because again of the undulation, the rear gets very light and wants to lock. So basically what I do is I brake before the rise. I'm fully off the brakes before the rise. Once the car's settled, I then aim the car with a lot of wheel into the apex here, and once I've hit the apex, I'm back into the throttle, feed it in, but it wouldn't swell motion. So once I'm back into the throttle, I'm not going to lift it off again. This here is a simple corner, but it's just a quick lift. Again, aim for that little bit of concrete on the inside there. You should be in 4th in the prototype, up into 5th 250 yards into this braking zone, down 3 gears into second. This is a tricky one again because you're going downhill and the car wants to carry more momentum into it. But then you're off the gas, and then again aiming for that little bit of grey concrete there on the inside, back hard into the throttle. The Carousel is a really tricky corner because it affects the run down into the Canada corner quite a lot. What you're aiming to do is balance the car on the throttle really. If the car's starting to take off in the steer, come back out of the throttle and you'll throw weight forward, it'll help the front's grip. Once I've got the car sort of aimed about here, and I've got the fronts hooked into the track as it were, I know I can then be fully in the throttle on the exit of the corner. That's usually where you can gain time through there. It doesn't really matter if you lose a bit of time at the apex there, so long as you can get on the throttle as early and as hard as possible. The kink is fully flat in these cars, even with low downforce. You've got plenty of underbody downforce there that'll help you out. And then it's just full flat through here, and then into Canada corner. This is a tricky braking zone. I usually brake right here. It's just before the let's back up a bit to show you, but it's just before the 400 yard point. You can hear the flat spots on my tyres. And it's that little kink there. I'm just going to hit it with the car there. That's where I usually brake hard. I know on most fuel tanks, most fuel loads, I can make the corner. Again, try and brake in a straight line. You're trying to screw off a lot of speed, go back down into third gear. And again, it's one of those where you have to really have trust in the car, come off the brakes and throw the car in almost. Again, you're aiming for that inside bit of concrete there. Once you hit it, then you know you can get back into the throttle, progressively adding more throttle in and pulling out the corner. Now this is a very tricky corner, and this is one where there's a lot of debate on the Discord during the week over do you take it flat or not. Now I could take it flat, but it depends on line. As you can see here, it's really off camber. So if you are on the outside of the corner, you're not going to take it flat, and it's going to want to unload the rear. So I try and get the car pointed in as close to this curb as possible and hug it. If I know about here, I know I can fully plant my foot, and whatever the car does coming over this rise, it'll be fine. Usually up into about 5th gear, hopefully, maybe 4th, brake at the collar sign up there, down into 3rd, and then again it's aiming your turning point and then aiming the car at the apex. And once you've got the car kind of hooked in on that rumble strip, you can then get back into the throttle and just smoothly move it outwards. So we'll add a bit more speed here. I'm amazed my tyres are still warm. As we're going along, you look for that braking point, down 2 gears into 4th, and then I'm literally just turning the car, hitting that apex there, getting back in hard into the power. Up to 5th, spot the braking point, down 2 gears, right, I'm down 2 gears, now I can turn, hit the throttle and hard into the throttle. One of the key things I found learning to drive, well, any cars like this, is getting off the brakes is almost as important as getting on the brakes. You can't turn a brake at the same time. Well, you can, but it's incredibly difficult. And you gain more time by knowing how to get off the brakes, let the front tyres bite, and hit the apex. Again, hit the apex, hard throttle. Up to 3rd, I don't go up to 4th because I do not want to have to do a downshift on that rise. It's very tricky. Take a lot of curb on the inside, feed in the power. Up to 3rd, small lift to get the front in, back on the power. Up to 5th. Spot the braking point, down 3 gears, lock the wheels there, don't do that. Hit the apex again, hard, power, 3rd, 4th, off the throttle again there, help the front tyres bite, get that weight forward, do the same thing again, allow, I know the grip there, I can go hard into the throttle. Up to 5th. Just aiming at that curve, but it's full flat, it's easy, flat. And I'm now thinking about the braking point there a bit earlier. Careful not to catch the outside of the track there. Hit the apex, hard into the throttle again. 3rd to 4th. Small lift on full tanks. Aim it, full flat there. 5th, brake down from 5th to 3rd. Again, aim it in apex. Hit the apex, and the car's good. Hard in the throttle to get speed. Then just watching all the upshifts, trying to get the breaking point again there. So as you can see, I was turning before I was on the brakes, but I was almost fully off the brakes when I began turning. You can feel it in the wheel with how the torque changes as you begin to put steering torque into the wheel with the brakes on. The tyres don't want to do that, and you can feel that reflecting in there, so you know how much you can get away with after doing a few laps. Managing those downshifts on the dip there, hit the apex, hard throttle, stay in third, car to spin, aim for the apex again, hard throttle again. Road America is good for turning points because there's a lot of outside curves that you see that you can use as reference points. You don't sometimes have to really consciously look at them at those points as you would a braking point, but they're there just to visually tell you whereabouts you are in your peripheral vision. You'll know after doing a few laps as you begin to build up that mental map of what the car's doing, what the track's doing, and you'll just know instinctively, right, I'm there, I can pitch the car in, it'll stick. Off the brakes again, let the car rotate, hit the apex hard with the throttle. One key thing to remember about lifting on the almost flat corners is to get the lift done as early as you can. You save a lot of time that way versus lifting mid-corner on exit. See, that was a good example of how to lose time there. I got into the throttle too early in the corner, had to lift. That then loses momentum at the exit. Didn't count properly on the downshift, should have gone to third, not second there. Yeah, just take it full flat on full tanks. Just going to quickly go back to the garage and look at the setup options. A couple of things to look out for with this setup is obviously the force feedback, and I've got it set quite high, and I did that because on a lot of the high downforce cars they can often feel a bit numb and there's not enough detail. And the detail is there in the force feedback, it's just being able to feel it. Because the downforce is the dominant force in terms of normal force on the tyres. So just upping that sometimes can help you if you're with a car that you feel is numb. It just helps you sort of see and you get used to what the wheel's telling you. One thing I noticed with the setups on this prototype was obviously you've got the engine map needs to be set to 5, but I also noticed that by default the traction control was set at 50%. Which it's manageable in this car, but I I've seen no problem in running at 100% traction control. People differ on this, but I like to get in the throttle as early as I can, and sometimes that triggers a lot of wheel spin, and that just helps me, particularly in races, not make mistakes.